Interesting. One statement, one evidence. I was still near the entrance. When he threw the knife over the counter, I felt a sharp pain. I pursued the man. I could see him through the peephole. He shot the man in the back. He was trying to flee to safety. I saw the blood splatter on the wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole. So I picked it up and made my escape. Okay, this thing can cut through doors and stuff, and you know, that's helpful somehow. I don't see a connection. I don't see anything we can examine. Is there something stuck in the blades? Maybe. I don't see it. If there's anything, I don't see it. Nope. I don't see anything. So, what the hell? I don't want to mess this up. I don't want, and I want to figure this out on my own. I don't want to use any help, so just bear with me here. At least this isn't as bad as the Portal playthroughs. So, calm down, everyone. Stereoscope. The only thing I've got is that the gun that she had on her was Windybank, so she didn't have another gun, and the gun she came in with, she had on her, and she was found passed out with, was this. That reveals damning inconsistency. Let's say meant damning. Okay, if she tossed the gun, then what's... Oh, we don't have... Yeah. Right? No? That reveals damning inconsistency. He said no pressing, so I can only present evidence. So, what evidence do I have?
Objection!
What on earth is that eccentric contraption, Kazu? Why? Why is this right? I know it's right because it has to be right. They said that this is the damning thing, but let's just continue. Let's just continue. I don't know where this is going. Oh, it's my cat flappo mat, my lord. It makes a way for cats to get in and out of a room. It can cut through any door you can think of, and make a new little door in the middle of it. That's right, my lord. It's a device for creating so-called cat flaps. Small doors for cats to come and go as they please without their owners having to... I'm sure we can all work that out for ourselves. But that cat lover's contrivance has no possible relevance to this case. Oh, really? Of course it doesn't. To start with, there was no cat flap in the pawnbroker's door. Not being a keeper of cats myself, I'm afraid I fail to see what this has to do with the matter at hand. Perhaps it would help if I described its function another way, then. This contraption is able to create a peephole in any door you can imagine in practically no time at all. Hold on a minute. But this was in Sholmes' apartment, not in the pawnbrokery. So why is it important? Are they saying that he had a contraption like that? I don't know. I beg your pardon? A peephole, you say? 2 nights ago, we arrived at the scene only minutes after the murder of Mr. Windybank had taken place. That's right. According to the paperwork at the yard, it was your Japanese assistant, and Sholmes. Yeah, the 3 of us were together, and it's recently come to my attention that my assistant made use of this device at the time. Your assistant did what? There was a peephole in the storeroom door. I can attest to that. Because I looked through the peephole myself in order to see inside the locked storeroom. This is ludicrous. What are you trying to say? Of course there was a peephole in the door. I said as much in my testimony. How else could I have witnessed the crime for pity's sake? Yeah, how could you? What? Kazu, can't you say what you mean? Alright, it's time. Time to strike the final blow. What I mean is this, my lord. My assistant made the peephole in the storeroom door, and until such time as she did, the door had no hole in it to look through. What? No! I did...
Objection!
This is a farce! Are you really suggesting that the peephole in the door was... Yes, it was created only after the incident had taken place, by my judicial assistant using this I have no recollection of this. I completely... I don't... Are they gonna flash back to it? Because I don't remember them using that thing. Your assistant tampered with the crime scene, whilst being fully aware of the gravity of her actions. That is a more serious act of vandalism. For which I humbly apologize, my lord. It was in the few minutes that I left in the scene in order to pursue the Skulkin brothers and alert the police. Nevertheless, in the light of this new information, it becomes apparent that Mr. Graydon's testimony is riddled with holes. Riddled with... Explain yourself, Kazu. The majority of Mr. Graydon's testimony that appears to incriminate the defendant is based upon what he witnessed through the peephole in the storeroom door. Yes, that filthy girl shooting the man in the back. However, if at the time of the incident that peephole did not yet exist in the door... Hold on a minute. Let's look at a picture before the crime took place. And then after the crime? No way. It is there. There's no peephole here, and then there's a square there. Oh, man. I should have paid more attention. I'm sorry. There's no possible way that you could have seen what you claim to have seen. In short, your entire testimony is a pack of lies. Order! 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 Is there any credence in this revelation?
Objection!
None whatsoever, as my learned friend must surely realize. Exactly. This is just some cheap trick designed to discredit me. I'm afraid not, sir. Of course it is. Do you seriously expect people to believe that that plaything can cut through a solid wooden door? Oh yes, I designed it to be very powerful. It can cut through even the toughest of doors. That's absurd. I don't believe it for a second. I had a feeling you'd say that. What? Waggy? Kiwi? Time for dinner? Well? Young lady, this is the Old Bailey. One does not make cat faps in the oak paneling at the Old Bailey. I'm not done yet, don't worry. This doesn't mean that the peephole in the storeroom door at the Windy Banks was made by your machine. And there's no way you can prove that it was. No, but it's easy. What? The cat flaps my cat flapper-mat creates are all of a fixed size, and the dimensions of the peephole at Windy Banks are an exact match. Hehe, old Silk is lost for words. Excellent work, Iris. Thank you. And now it's my learned student friend's turn to be lost for words, I fear. I believe your judicial assistant has already left the country for your Eastern Island home. Well, yeah, that's true. Then you may have some difficulty in establishing all the facts. For the sake of argument, let's assume the people has dimensions that are a perfect fit for these contraptions. In that case, then was the peephole cat. The prosecution demands proof of your answer. What is the purpose of your line of inquiry, Lord Van Zieks? It's very simple, my lord. The defense argues that the peephole was created after the incident using this device, but now that the perpetrator has returned to our native land, she cannot testify to the fact. There is no proof. And for as long as the defense remains unable to prove when the peephole was made, my learned friend's claim amounts to nothing more than a baseless accusation. Indeed, that is so, Lord Van Zieks. Well, Kazu, don't give up now, Runo. This is the time to create your own opening and force your way through. I don't know if I can do this, but I do know one thing. Sada-san is the greatest judicial assistant in the world. Very well. The counsel for the defense will present evidence to support the claim made. Proof that the peephole in the door of Windy Bank's storeroom was created after the event and not before. There you go. What are you, a print from the detective's infrared cameras again? My judicial assistant, Mrs. Sara Makatoba, is an extremely intelligent and capable woman, which is why I never had any cause to doubt that she would have considered this scenario and made sure I had the necessary proof. And the necessary proof is this photographic print, Counsel. This print shows a scene in the shop moments after the defendant entered the premises. Agreed. And it also shows the accused mercilessly wielded a gun in the direction of the defense's broker. But more to the point, it pictures the storeroom door in the background. Let me see that print again. I don't believe it. This really is quite remarkable. The door to the storeroom is completely devoid of a peephole of any description. Mr. Graydon, you couldn't possibly have witnessed the crime as you claim to have done, because at the time it happened, there was no peephole in the door. In other words, your testimony is a catalog of lies. Order! I'm satisfied that the defense has substantiated his claim beyond all reasonable doubt. This witness's testimony was entirely fallacious. That's not the only thing we know now beyond all reasonable doubt. My learned friend's assistant's guilt can no longer be denied. The woman tampered with the crime scene. But more importantly... Good lord, there's more, Lord Van Zieks. The defense may have established a reprehensible instance of perjury. But that is no proof that this man is the victim's killer. Yes, that's right. What? I was there at the scene, it's true. And I was shot in the arm. It is true. But that is all. Yes, in fact, if you look at the circumstances, I am the victim here. Oh, please, no! I don't believe this. But they're right. As it stands now, I don't have any definitive proof that he is a culprit. Still, he can't worm his way out of it now. Iris, you know what they say. There's no point locking the cat's door after the cat is bolted. Isn't that right, Bruno? As Early always says, one lie begets another. No, wait. That might have been a line I wrote for him in one of my stories. Well, no matter who said it first, you're right. Mr. Graydon, not only did you give false testimony to the court, but the lies you told make no sense. Make no sense? What do you mean by such a remark? What you said in your testimony reveals that you know something you shouldn't have known. In other words, there is a fundamental inconsistency in your statements. What?
Objection!
This is provocative talk, counsel. Want to enlighten the court? Explain this alleged inconsistency.
Iris was right. One lie begets another. The inconsistency is revealed by the lies in the witnesses' statements. They show that Mr. Graydon had knowledge of something he shouldn't have known anything about. Namely... the bloodstains that were present on Miss Lestrade's coat. That's right. The victim's blood spattered all over her when she shot him. But how could you possibly have known that? Obviously, because I saw her do it through the peephole and... The point is not that you lied in your testimony, Mr. Graydon. It's the nature of the lie you concocted that is so revealing. You're not making any sense. Then let me ask you a simple question. How is it, Mr. Graydon, that you knew of the existence of the peephole in the storeroom door? What? Well, obviously,
Has the cat caught your tongue, Whitneys?
The peephole on the door was made after the incident occurred, and once I returned to the shop having failed to catch the two burglars, Scotland Yard's investigators arrived immediately. Since that time, the police have been at Windy Banks constantly, carrying out their investigation. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson?
Well, yeah, of course. The place is chock full of pawned articles and my lads have to thoroughly examine them all. So I gave the order to have officers working round the clock in shifts so we get through it all.
And consequently, there's no way that you, Mr. Graydon, could have gained access to the shop. Therefore, you should have known nothing about the peephole in the storeroom door. So the fact that its existence forms the basis of your testimony is completely inexplicable.
Objection!
And yet, the fact remains that Mr. Graydon did maintain that he witnessed the crime take place through the peephole in the door. How on earth is that possible?
Could I have a word, please, Lord Van Zinch?
Speak, Inspector.
It's just that I really ought to be getting back to the station now to put in my report. There's really nothing more I can add to this testimony, so if it's all the same to you...
Permission denied.
Oh.
It's not all the same to me, Inspector. Not at all. You will remain exactly where you are until this trial concludes.
Of course, sir. Mr. Graydon? You shouldn't have known about the existence of that peephole. Which can only mean that you must have been informed about it by somebody else.
Objection!
Stop there, my learned friend. You realize, I trust, that the words you just uttered have extremely serious implications.
Yes, but the defense believes that the details about the case that Mr. Graydon claims to have seen must have been revealed to him by a certain person before his testimony. And in fact, considering a particular clue we have, there's really only one person that could be.
Who is the person in question, Kazu? Who gave this witness details of the crime scene to facilitate his false testimony?
Take that!
Sorry about this. The truth is, it can only have been you, Inspector Gregson.
I? Me?
Objection!
You had better have some proof to substantiate such a rash claim, my learned friend.
Consider the fact that we have only been aware of Mr. Ashley Graydon's identity for the last few hours. We learned of it only during the course of the trial today.
Indeed, preparations for his testimony were made with great urgency during our hour-long recess, while the police executed the subpoena and brought the man here from the communications station.
And until that time, Mr. Graydon would have had no idea. No inkling that he would suddenly be required to appear in court.
Are you suggesting that until such time as you are summoned?
Yes, my lord. Until then, it's reasonable to assume he knew nothing of the peephole. It was only once Mr. Graydon was on the stand that he realized his position, that he would have to defend himself against the accusation that he was the third intruder.
You're suggesting to the court that it was while this trial was in progress that he received the information? So that he could commit perjury in order to save his skin?
Exactly. And the only person with knowledge of the investigation that he had any contact with is you, Inspector Gregson.
This is blaming outrage. Why would I be giving away details of my investigation to this fella, eh? I was summoned to his lordship's chambers during the recess in any case. Have you forgotten that? Quite true. I had a number of questions regarding the events that transpired at the pawnbrokery. Which means the first time these two laid eyes on one another was after proceedings resumed following the recess. Since then, they've been in full view in the stand, where such illicit discussions couldn't possibly have occurred.
Oh, I've just remembered something, Reno. What is it, Iris? There was one time before, wasn't there? I think it was when Jenny was testifying. Oh yeah, now you mention it. When the bailiff was dispatched to retrieve McGilded's music box from the scene of the crime. That's it! It was during that testimony. I remember finding it strange at the time. Mr. Graydon and the inspector seemed to be having some kind of secret discussion. It would have been possible for you to give Mr. Graydon the information he needed then.
You little toe rag, you're making this all up. I'm a respectable Scotland Yard inspector, for crying out loud. Why would I do something like that? Why would I be giving away confidential details to the likes of this bloke?
Admittedly, you wouldn't have had any reason to do something like that for no gain. But perhaps it was part of a deal of some kind? Then it starts to make more sense.
What deal, counsel?
I wonder if perhaps in exchange for details about the peephole at the crime scene, Mr. Graydon agreed to give a certain something to the inspector.
I'm sure I did not remind the inspector that, if found to be true, striking a deal of any kind with a witness would be considered a gross case of malfeasance.
Objection!
It's becoming clear that jumping in with accusations is Nipponi student's specialty.
I don't do that.
But with the stakes so high, the prosecution is not prepared to listen to baseless charges. It is incumbent on the defense not to present evidence in support of this diabolical claim.
Evidence?
Just what are you proposing that the inspector demanded of the witness in return? The court must see proof of this alleged deal.
If If Inspector Gregson really did strike a deal with Mr. Graydon, then logically, there's only one thing he could have asked for. That must be it. Runa, do you think it could be? Yes. It's the missing link that would join all the dots together in this puzzle. I must press you for an answer now, Kazu. What evidence explains the nature of the alleged deal that Inspector Gregson made with the witness? Explains the nature. This could be a couple of things, so I'm gonna save again, just in case. And I'll present this. Inspector Gregson, besides this murder, is it not true that he'd been working on another very important case?
What are you getting at now, Sunshine?
Is it possible that this other top-secret case is what's alluded to in this newspaper article here? The classified secrets being leaked overseas from the Ministry of Justice?
How the bleeding know what could you...
We discovered during the course of this trial the music box deposited at Windybanks by Magnus McGilded, a special music box designed to play 2 discs at once. It would seem very likely now that encoded on the pair of discs that were in McGilded's possession are the leaked classified secrets. So I put it to you, Inspector, that in order to recover the second of the discs containing those secrets, you covertly made a deal with Mr. Graydon in which you exchanged the disc for details of the case.
You little...
Order! Order! On the day of the incident, when we met you at Windybanks, you said this.
I'll be taking that whatever it is in McGilded's down to the yard, thank you very much. So hand it over.
No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is. Mine.
I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now.
Scotland Yard already knew at that time, isn't that right? That Magnus McGilded was involved in the stealing of government secrets.
My orders were recover a medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry and do it on the QT. Strictly hush hush.
And that explains why, when I presented this disc as evidence to the court,
You objected so heavily, I presume? Because you know that it contained highly confidential information. Blimey, not likely. I mean, I wasn't that sure of it myself. I realized there was a possibility, that's all.
Inspector, surely you're not saying that in order to acquire the second of these music box discs, you did indeed reveal confidential details of this crime scene to the witness? To aid and abet this man in giving false testimony? There's no other way that Mr. Graydon could have known of the existence of the peephole. It's the only explanation. A deal was struck between these two men.
No!
Objection!
If, I stress if, this sobering assertion turns out to be founded in truth, it would mean that second disc is as we speak, here, in this very courtroom.
Wait, what? In this room? How would you possibly make a claim like that?
Because Inspector Gregson is a Scotland Yard detective.
What?
What's that supposed to mean, eh? As a seasoned policeman, the inspector will have approached this alleged deal with caution. Certainly he would not have accepted a gentleman's agreement in this matter. No, he would insisted on having the article agreed upon in the palm of his hand.
Good gracious, then you mean to say Inspector Gregson already has the item in question in his possession? He has the second disc actually on his person?
Yes!
The defense demands that the inspector is searched at once. Definitely. They could only have struck a deal with each other when Ginny was testifying before. And Gregsy hasn't moved from the witness stand since. My lord, please, order an examination of his personal effects immediately.
Well, Inspector, This young lad wants to turn down his imagination. He's insulting me on my profession quite enough. However, if you'll put this matter to bed and dispel any doubts about my involvement, then I'll happily submit to a body search.
What? He's gonna agree to it?
I presume you're aware of the precipice on which you now teeter, my learned student friend. You've made the most serious allegation against Scotland Yard here. If, following the search of the inspector's personal effects, no disc is found, you will be deemed unfit for court service. This trial will end. My country's government will formally demand of yours that you are severely reprimanded.
That sounds serious.
Indeed.
To have a visiting student make such defamatory remarks about our country's most senior police force is not something Her Majesty's government will be able to overlook. You just threaten Naruhodo because you're scared.
The accusation is beyond serious. You must be prepared for grave consequences.
It's true. I can't imagine Gregson would have accepted a gentleman's agreement for something so critical. The disc must have physically changed hands, which means the inspector should have it. But somehow, something doesn't feel quite right here.
Very well, Counsel. You know the implications, so let me ask you one final time.
Yes, my lord.
Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal effect?
No, search someone else. Yes, the defense formally demands the search be conducted.
Well, don't say you weren't warned, but your typical Nipponese stubbornness may well land you in hot waters this time. Perhaps this lesson will do you some good. Fair enough. I've got nothing to hide. Very well then. Bailiff, conduct a search of the inspector's personal effect.
The defense demands a search, but not of Inspector Gregson.
What? Now what's all this? I'm the one you're accusing, aren't I? I thought you wanted to search me.
No, Inspector, not you. Somebody else.
What's the meaning of all this, eh? Lost it at last, have ya, sunshine? Of course you shouldn't have put up this nonsense. You've been completely irrational. Be quiet, all of you.
Oh, who said that? Be quiet, all of you. Runa's doing what you all told him to do, and having the courage of his convictions. So you should respect that and listen to what he has to say in good faith. Because that's the British way.
Well said, young lady. Indeed, this court is in awe of the defense counsel's conviction and eagerly awaits his next words. You are? Now don't be hasty, my lord.
If I'm not mistaken about the things I've seen in court today, I'm fairly sure that I know who has that disc at the moment. There's only one person it can be.
Counsel, of whom do you request this search now?
Of, my lord, Mr. Nash Skulkin.
Well, I never. Eh? Me? Him? Very well then, bailiff. Restrain the witness and conduct a thorough search of his personal effects. Please, my lord. Inspector? Scotland Yard has to object to the search.
Objection!
Unfortunately for you, Inspector, your objections carry no weight here.
Aye?
In this courtroom, only the prosecution and the defense have the authority to object. But Lord Van Sinks, I have no idea what forces are in play that might influence your actions. But personally, I have no intention of obstructing the course of this trial. Bailiff, carry out the search.
Now hold on a mo. I don't know nothing about no disc. Cut it out! Ah!
Hey, my lord, in the witness's pocket. I found this. Good lord.
That's another music box disc. I don't know nothing about it. Nothing. That is the second music box disc left behind by Magnus McGilded. Is it not, Inspector Gregson?
Me chips. Order! Order! Mr. Skulkin, what have you to say for yourself?
Gordon Bennett, I mean, just Gordon Flamin' Bennett. I swear I didn't know nothing about that disc. Honest to God.
Counsel, would you please explain what exactly is going on here? The alleged deal that was struck between this witness and this detective, no?
Without question, my lord.
Then, for pity's sake, why on earth was this man in possession of the disc that the inspector traded for information?
Inspector Gregson is a shrewd, calculating man who rarely loses his composure. At one particular point in this trial, he exhibited some unusual behavior for a brief moment.
I don't recall. What unusual behavior?
It was, yes, during my cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbroker that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? I admit to nothing of the sort. While Mr. Graydon answered my questions, the inspector appeared to have grabbed Nash Skulkin by his coat and was shaking him violently. Yeah, he did and all. Thought me noggin was gonna fall clean off, I did. I was wishing I'd been born as me brother, I was. And what exactly happened to make the detective attack you like that?
I ain't got a clue.
He just certainly turned and grabbed me whistle like that and started shaking me. Why the blaze didn't you mention the third gun when we got you down the station? That's what he said. He held it right down my ear hole, he did. Me head's still throbbing now. The way the detective behaved then was extremely out of character. But looking back now, it must have been then that he did it. That was the opportunity Inspector Gregson created for himself in order to hide the disc.
Well, bless my wig! He hid it?
You.
But I'm afraid I fail to comprehend the motive here. If the detective had acquired the disc he was after, why on earth would he then proceed to hide it in another man's pocket? This is a court of law. You could have submitted the item as evidence.
It would appear, my lord, that the inspector was not at liberty to do that.
Why ever not?
As the man himself revealed earlier, his current assignment has some special conditions.
My orders were, recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry, and do it on the QT. Strictly hush hush. Hush hush? A top secret assignment, is it?
As far as we are aware, the information stolen comes from confidential government communications.
It would seem that if the information were to be revealed in court as evidence, it would be problematic. Does that sum up the situation, Inspector? I'm operating under direct orders from the mystery. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to answer that question.
So, realizing there was a chance that you may be searched here in court,
you took steps to hide the disc you had acquired from the witness. Ah! Does this mean?
He only pretended to attack Mr. Skulkin in order to get close enough to him to slip the second disc into his pocket.
So it was all a pretense? Well now, Inspector Gregson, and you, Mr. Graydon, are you prepared to admit to the accusation made against you of this alleged deal?
Admit to it? Yours truly, please. Mr. Graydon, Clearly our Eastern visitor has an uncommonly active imagination. However, there is no proof that I passed that disc to the inspector. But then, how do you explain the reason why you knew about the peephole? I'm under no obligation to explain. What? Yes, I lied in my testimony. That I admit. So sentence me accordingly. But that is all I admit. Murder, leaking government secrets, striking a deal with a detective. All of it is this young Eastern man's fantasy. I have no idea what any of that is about. You... What? Well, what about you then, Inspector Gregson? Do you admit to making a deal with Mr. Graydon in order to acquire the disc?
Ladies and gents of the jury, as a scolding on inspector, I will declare this nothing more. I am acting in the best interest of the country. Whatever I've done, it's been in the name of justice. So, as members of the public of this foreign country, I'd like to think that justice will be your guide lot when you're making your decisions.
This is quite a quandary indeed. Rarely have I encountered such extraordinary tumultuousness in the concluding of a trial. Nevertheless, in the absence of any further evidence to be presented, I believe it is time that we put the matter to the jury for their final leanings. Well now, as a fellow servant of Queen and Country, I must say I sympathize with the old inspector. Yes, he's a dependable man, I am quite sure. In service, one becomes a good judge of character. Even crowding your eyes doesn't help when it comes to looking at this case. It's all blurred to me. Well, as a fellow professional, I like to put my faith in a detective, really. Graydon is a highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence vital. Stop.
Detective has very much trust in eyes. More than this I cannot say.
I don't believe it. These 6 jurors are gonna believe Gregson if they declare their decision now. Is Shinny gonna be found guilty? If I don't manage to produce some definitive evidence right now, then we're gonna lose. Either some proof that Graydon killed Mr. Windybank or stole those government secrets, or some evidence to force Gregson into admitting that he struck a deal with the witness. Well then, Kansas, I think it's time I impose on the jurors to declare their final decisions, no? That is, unless you have some compelling evidence you have thus far not presented to the court. If I let the judge call on the jurors to announce their leanings, Gino will be found guilty. So there's no choice then, Bruno. You have to throw some more evidence at him. This is it now. It all comes down to this. Who do I present evidence against? Gregson or Graydon? Really? I have no idea. Let's... okay. So, either evidence that proves that Graydon killed Windybank or stole the government secrets, or evidence that Gregson made the deal. Do we have such evidence here? We have the music box. It's empty. The third bullet. The pouch. Music box disc. Stereoscope. Photograph. I don't know. What is the proof here? Alright, fuck it. give me a minute here, I'll be back. Oh, okay. Alright, I see what's going on here. It's a bit of a tricky one, but okay. I think I can see the logic behind it. Because we have the first disc and they have the second disc, allegedly. Or no, we did find the second disc. Is it here in the core record, though? No, it's not, so that made me forget. Okay, so we have the first disc here, and the second disc has been found, so let's do this. Inspector Gregson, there is one final piece of evidence I would like you to see.
Aye? What's that, then?
If you refuse to acknowledge that you did in fact strike a deal with the witness here today, then you will leave us no choice but to examine this piece of evidence thoroughly.
Well, go on.
This is my last chance. It looks like I'm gonna have to force his hand here. One following piece of evidence to get this detective to admit to the deal he clearly struck with Graydon.
Take that!
Is it Mr. McGilded's music box disc, Cancer?
Yes, the first disc of two, which has already been placed in Mr. McGilded's special music box ready to play. I think perhaps now would be a good time to listen to the sound produced by the music box again. Only this time, with the second disc we've just discovered set in place as well.
Good news! This disc, Cancer?
No, wait! I can't let you do that.
Why not?
Because it's got nothing to do with this case, that's why.
Not true, Inspector.
Aye?
The defense has already proposed that the sounds heard by the court earlier from this music box were part of a Morse code message. We know that Morse code comprises of two distinct tones. The defense believes that the second disc contains the second tone needed to complete the message. And now we have a chance to confirm that theory.
For crying out loud, Sunshine, we're talking about state secrets here. If you go letting the old courtroom hear confidential information like that, it's treason.
Then do you admit the charge that in order to protect those state secrets you engaged in unlawful dealings with the witness?
You're mad. If you let that secret information out to the public domain, you'll be making an enemy of the entire British government, you idiot.
Let's not forget, Inspector, that you, a Scotland Yard officer, leaked confidential case details to a witness. That you continue to lie to the court, and all because by fair means or foul, you're determined to do your duty. Well, by fair means or foul, I'm prepared to do mine.
Don't you dare.
I will stop at nothing to protect my client. I don't care who I make an enemy of. My lord, if you please, the court must hear the sounds made by that music box.
Come on, Van Zee, for Pete's sake. Stop him. Inspector, you should know my message by now. I'm a prosecutor. I'm no Scotland Yard puppet. In this courtroom, my duty is to the law. So let me propose a toast to uncovering the truth by fair means or foul. No!
Very well. The defense stands here, and that of the prosecution has been made very clear, I fear. Therefore, in accordance with the defense's request, the court will now listen as this music box is set in operation once more. This time, with the second disc in place and both discs playing simultaneously. Simultaneously. Dun 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 dun. It's Morse code.
Alright, mate. Whatever you want. But for the love of God, shut that blimmin' box up.
Let me ask you again then, Inspector Gregson. Did you, or did you not, strike a deal with the witness next to you on the stand, Mr. Ashley Graydon?
Specifically, did you furnish the witness with confidential case details in exchange for this music box disc? Did you reveal the existence of the peephole in the pawnbroker's storeroom door, Inspector?
I did.
Stop! What are you doing, man?
It's all exactly like the young Eastern lawyer said. When the trial resumed after the recess, and we were stood here in the standing hour, that's when he approached me with the deal.
Shut up, you imbecile! Shut up!
Psst, you there. You're the detective who turned up at the pawnbroker the other day, aren't you? I may have something you're looking for, Inspector, with me at this very moment. So how about a trade? As a gesture you accept, or information that may make certain individuals uncomfortable will soon become very public indeed.
I could let that information become public knowledge, not under any circumstances. So I accepted the man's proposal and told him details about the case that should have put him in the clear. The peephole in the showroom door, and the blood stains on the overcoat.
By giving false testimony, this witness intended to have the defendant wrongly accused of murder. Inspector, you knew that. Yet you still revealed those details to facilitate the witness's perjury.
I did. But then it turned out the peephole had only been made that night, after the incident took place. Scotland Yard wasn't aware of that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Well, Mr. Graydon, what do you have to say for yourself? There's nothing and no one left for you to hide behind. You struck a deal with the inspector in order to escape conviction of a very serious crime. Namely this. You are the third intruder who broke into the pawnbroker on the night in question, and you perpetrated the murder of the proprietor, Mr. Pop Windybank.
You... Traitor! Bailiff! Bailiff! Restrain that man! At once!
That's it then. It's all over. Alright, well, thanks for watching. It's been a long ride, and I'm glad we got there in the end. I'm glad we could finally manage to prove that Jean Lestrade is innocent of her crimes, and that nothing... I despised my life growing up. Those slums are vile places. I was cursed from birth, born into poverty, the son of a penniless artisan. My parents did nothing but quarrel all day long. What little money they had was never spent on me. So I set about studying, to better myself, to one day escape from that hellhole.
And you eventually became a communications officer. I admire your determination.
But then you decided to try to sell government secrets. Why?
Isn't it obvious? Because I wanted money. Even now, years later, the nightmares of my life in the slums wake me in the small hours. I wanted to drown them out, with more money than anyone who lived in that squalor could ever imagine. Then one day I met him. Mr. Magnus McGilded.
You're a fiend with a queer talent, so you are. All money to throw your way if you're interested. All you need to do is go along with me little plan now.
I was to seal the ministry's telegraphic message logs, and McGilded would buy them for a handsome sum. As I was responsible for the inspections of the ministry's communications office, it was a simple enough task. The lure of the devil's offerings. How easy it is to succumb. But you must surely have realized the seriousness of the crime you were committing. And for that reason, I took great lengths to ensure that my actions were untraceable. By using the music box. My father was a brickmaker, although my mother divorced him when I was still a child. Yes, Mr. Mason Milverton. That's right. He was very skilled with his hands. He'd once been a music box maker's apprentice. I imagined his skills would be very sufficient to create a machine that could generate Morse code. So I sought out my father again, to employ his services. It was the first time I'd seen him since I left the slums 10 years earlier.
Look at you, Ashley. What a fine gent you've become, eh?
He was a different man to the one in my memory. A thin, frail old man. But poverty had never broken him, never corrupted him like it had me. I was sure that he wouldn't help me if I told him the real reason, so I made up a story. I've got some work for you, Father. I've got some work for you, Father. I need some music box discs made.
Music box disc, eh? A musician's friend of mine...
A musician's friend of mine has written some music he wants to sell to the public. I brought the score with me. There are two, actually. I'd be
delighted, son. It's been 20 years since I did any work like this, though. Fetch my tools, would you? They're in the loft.
That's how I had to make the 2 discs.
Thereby splitting the information in 2. You've taken considerable precautions indeed.
It was to protect myself as much as anything. It meant that I could deal with McGilded in 2 separate transactions. The first involved the first of the 2 discs and the music box for playing them. I exchanged them with McGilded for 10 guineas. Then, on receipt of the second disc, he would pay 1,000 guineas. So, what happened on the omnibus 2 months ago was the second part of a deal? The exchange of the second disc? Yes. I'd sold the man information that way a number of times already, but it seems he became reluctant to part with his money.
But that doesn't quite make sense, Mr. Graydon. For why was it on the omnibus 2 months ago? Your father, Mr. Milverton, was the one dealing with Mr. McGilded, and not yourself.
When I received the 1,000 guineas after my first completed dealings with McGilded, I decided to give 200 to my father for his troubles. My father realized something was amiss. In time, he worked out that I must be involved in something dubious, and when he did, he said to me,
"Next time there is an exchange, you let your old man do it, understand? Otherwise, I won't take her money anymore."
That was my father's way of dealing with it, I suppose. Climb into the omnibus, hand over the second disc, and take the money from McGilded. That's it. He had no idea what was actually on the discs I'd asked him to make. He never knew. Just like I'll never know why everything went so horribly wrong that night. All I know is that the disc was taken from him, and he never returned home. It was only then that I found out what sort of monster McGilded really was. So after 10 years of not once uttering it, I swore on my father's name. To exact revenge. Revenge? As anyone who has even the remotest knowledge of the man will no doubt be able to imagine, McGilded brought all his wealth and influence to bear in the most despicable of ways. To crush any semblance of justice in his trial. The crime scene was tampered with, evidence was fixed, and witnesses were bribed. That trial 2 months ago was a farce from start to finish.
My feet had barely touched British soil back then. And I walked into that hornet's nest completely unaware of the sinister background to it all. I'd made plenty of money out of my dealings with McGilded by then, so I spared nothing in my arrangements 2 months ago. I knew exactly who to hire. If you're willing to pay the price, there are people in the city willing to do anything you ask. McGilded himself had shown me that. Are you saying that... I think you have the picture now. After he twisted everything into his favor in this courtroom to ensure that he walked free, I took matters into my own hands and delivered the justice that monster deserved. That tragic accident following the trial here 2 months ago was planned and executed by yours truly. McGilded's death that day was caused by this man?
Everything is ready, sir. If you'd like to follow me into the courtroom.
What's this, officer? To see whether all is that to believe.
I was not inconvenient, sir. There are some changes to the schedule.
Well, all must be making tracks now. It's time for the inspection. They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. Or else if I could be present for it myself.
So that policeman who came to tell McGilded he could examine the omnibus again. That's right. An imposter, hired by me. McGilded used his wealth to manipulate the trial. He paid people to adulterate the omnibus with all manner of false evidence. He threatened witnesses to lie in their testimony. So I gave the man a taste of his own medicine. Once the omnibus was doused in paraffin, one of my sham policemen ushered McGilded inside and sent him on a one-way journey to hell. An eye for an eye. That's how I avenged my father's death.
A spine-chilling account indeed.
But that wasn't the end of it for me. There was a loose end, you see. A loose end? Yes, I should think it's obvious. The second disc, which my father had taken to exchange with McGilded.
Ah, yes. There was indeed no mention of it in the man's trial 2 months ago. Clearly because it had been removed from the scene of the crime.
When I realized it was missing, I remembered something. Something from the first time I dealt with McGilded. This is the first of the 2 discs, and the music box you need to play them.
Well, learn that now. What an ingenious little invention. So then, as promised, 10 guineas for you, young man.
What's this? Windybank's pawnbrokery?
Ah, it is a pawnbroker's ticket, so it is. You can use it to redeem an article while I've deposited it there for you. There's no need to give a name. Just hand over the ticket and tell the fiend the watchword. I'll put a jewel in pawn for you. It'll fetch a good 10 guineas if you sell it. If you sell it, so it will.
I've never heard of pawnbrokery being used in quite that way before.
Have you not, Mr. Graydon? London's pawnbrokeries are very useful places, you know. Each one is like an extremely secure vault.
So I knew that if he'd taken steps to hide the discs, it would be in that pawnbrokery somewhere, and that on the night he killed my father, he must have entrusted the ticket to someone. Yeah, to Gina. I remember now, that when we first met you at Windybags that afternoon 2 days ago, you had a description of Mr. Strahd written down. How did you know who you were looking for? From the trial, that pickpocket's testimony was clearly peculiar. Anyone could see that. I realized immediately that she was another of McGilded's pawns, that he must have threatened her somehow. I was fairly convinced it would be her who had the ticket, so I started to make some inquiries. I had a strong suspicion the girl would come out of the woodwork on the redemption deadline, and he was absolutely right. And yes, sure enough, she did. All I needed to do was to wait until the girl went to Windybanks to redeem the articles, but unfortunately she redeemed only McGilded's overcoat and the one disc that was in its pocket. The all-important music box with the second disc inside was missing, because it had already been forfeited 2 days earlier. But I was unaware of that fact. Had it not been, I could have avoided my nighttime excursion. Meanwhile, as our investigation into the stolen government secrets was progressing, we picked up on the fact that McGilded was involved.
Inspector, you've recovered fast.
Well, we just wanted to cover the stolen information as quickly as possible, so we started gathering the fellas' possessions and examining whatever we could lay our hands on. We had a full-scale investigation going on at the yard, but we had to keep it as quiet as we could.
Then, when the inspector here took the disc from me in the pawnbrokery that day, I became nervous. I was sure the music box and the second disc were still in there in the shop somewhere, so I knew that it was a race against time. I had to find those articles before the police did. So that's what prompted you to break into the place that same night, with the help of your old friends, the Skulkin brothers. What happened that night in the pawnbrokery I can only describe as a nightmare. While Nash and Ringo were searching the counter, I'd located the music box I'd sold to McGilded on the shelves of forfeited articles.
The second disc was inside?
Yes, I slipped it into my pocket with a very deep sigh of relief. But then, something entirely unexpected happened.
What are you doing in my shop?
A gunshot rang out in the shop, and I felt a sharp pain in my left arm.
The broker fired his gun, and the bullet pierced your limb.
Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, I decided to bring my own gun with me that night, just in case. Before I knew what was happening, I'd fired back. The man had already turned to flee. I hadn't intended to fire in his direction, much less kill him. But unfortunately for both of us, the bullet hit home. It struck him in the middle of his back as he fled through the storeroom door for refuge.
A sorry tale.
It all took place in the blink of an eye. I couldn't imagine Nash or Ringo even realized what had happened at first. I was terrified, so I fled. And that's the whole story. That's everything that happened at Windybanks on that wretched night.
Earlier you called McGilded a monster, a man who used his wealth and influence to distort the facts and escape justice for the crime of murder. What tragic irony, for what you have done is exactly the same. You've become the very monster you saw and despised so deeply in McGilded.
Yes, I think I have.
Well, this has been a long and exhausting trial. However, it would seem that at last we have arrived at the truth. Inspector Gregson, what of Mr. Ashley Graydon? He's been restrained, my lord, and he's been escorted to the yard. He'll be charged with the murder of Mr. Windybank and the stealing of government secrets. Very good. And you, Inspector, regrettably, you will have to face charges yourself. Yes, my lord, of course. It transpires that you were complicit in helping a criminal escape justice. That fact remains whether or not you were doing so in line of duty. The crime is a serious one, Inspector, and inexcusable. Now to the defendant, Mr. Lestrade. You? It is time for the final education. Is the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Yes, sir. Get a squadron standing by, sir. This is really it now. The last push, the final call, the finishing whistle. My men are ready to deliver their verdicts. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You will now declare your final decisions to the court.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Haha, that's the stuff. I'm off the hook. Finally, Bruno, you finally managed to do it.
Finally is the word. I really wasn't sure if we'd come out on top for a while there.
Susie was right. You're the best lawyer in the world.
Mr. Strahd, I have not finished with you yet.
What are you looking at me like that for?
Before you start enjoying your freedom, there are certain other crimes to consider. Hmm? 2 months ago, in my courtroom no less, you gave false testimony, did you not? And in relation to the trial today, not only did you unlawfully enter Windybank's Palm Bakery, you also attempted to abscond with Mr. McGilded's property, it seems. I never done nothing of the sort.
Of course not. It's not like you were gleefully wearing McGilded's coat in your cell yesterday or anything.
Oh, and just when I was getting excited about throwing a party for Jenny this evening,
and turning our attention to the defense, determining that, when played together, the music box discs contained a message in Morse code was, well, it was certainly a most unexpected revelation, Counsel. Quite so, my lord. The prosecution was caught entirely off guard. In fact, I think we should applaud my learned friend's courage here today. I propose a toast to demanding that government secrets be disseminated before the entire courtroom.
Very sorry about that. It was the only way I could get Inspector Gregson on my way done so.
If I may say something about on that point.
If I may say something about that point. Oh, if I may say something about that point, it's about the sounds produced by the music box before. I do wonder if that was really Morse code at all.
What? What are you saying, madam?
Oh, well, it's just that I'm really rather fanatical when it comes to Morse code, you see. So much so that the whole world seems to be covered in dots and dashes to me, in fact.
Goodness, madam, an unhealthy level of obsession, one feels.
But I must say that in my opinion, the sounds produced by these two discs were nothing more than that. A meaningless series of two different tones.
What?
Can that really be? It wasn't Morse code after all?
My lord, the defense would like to listen to the music box again.
Are you off your nut? How many times do I have to tell you? Those discs contain ministerial secrets, Sunshine. This courtroom is not an appropriate forum to discuss the nature of the government communications. We know McGilded conspired to trade national secrets with our enemies. Secrets acquired from Mr. Graydon. Now that the man has admitted to his crimes, we have no need to pursue this matter further.
But it's really gonna bother me.
Mr. Strahd.
Yeah, my lord?
That which you have seen today here in this courtroom has been extremely disturbing. Falsified evidence, intimidation, perjury, a grim catalogue of depravity. An appalling experience to befall any child.
Come on, it ain't nothing I don't say most days in the bet slums.
I beg your pardon? If you're weak, you pay for it. That's just how life goes.
Gina.
But look, I reckon I've worked something out today. The world ain't fair, but if you want it to change, you've got to start at home. You've got to change how you are yourself. Well, that's a very laudable lesson, I would say. I eagerly look forward to the born-again Miss Lestrade never gracing my courtroom with her presence again. Now, with regard to the murder of Mr. Pop Windybank, proprietor of a pawnbrokery business on Baker Street, I hereby declare the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, not guilty.
Oh. Where did that come from?
That is all. Court is adjourned.
Now fuck off.
On a personal note, I must say you've surprised me, my Far Eastern friend.
Oh!
Despite being a Nipponese, you saw through the pretense of the you saw through the pretense to the malice that festered within that Englishman, and at the same time saw through the crime to the surprising heart of your English client. You have a curious talent for judging character, especially considering our very different cultures.
I don't think there's anything curious about it. Whether we're from the Empire of Great Britain or the Empire of Japan, we're all human beings. We're not so very different on the inside.
You know, I took this case for one very simple reason. To lock swords with you once again here in this courtroom.
You did?
When I encountered you for the first time 2 months ago, it reminded me of toasting friendship and trust with another Nipponese, only to find my trust betrayed. Through you, I hope to look into the eyes of the man I once knew and try to understand.
You mentioned something similar earlier today, about total betrayal at the hands of the Japanese. What happened exactly?
Well, you may ask, and one day, when the time comes, you will learn the answer, whether you like it or not.
Alright, then I'll wait for that day if I must.
Coming to be known as the Reaper of the Bailey, and my retirement from service 5 years ago, it gives me cause to wonder if our meeting has some deeper purpose. So, farewell, my learned Nipponese fellow, until we meet again. It's done.
It's over at last. But where's Iris disappeared to? Ah! Congratulations, Gina. I knew it all along. I knew that you were innocent.
Well, you did what you said, Mr. Naruhodo. You believed in me right up to the end. You're as hard as your name.
What's odd about it? I told you I had faith in you, didn't I?
No one ever has before, see? Kept a promise, I mean. Properly.
That's awful.
I figured something out today. All my life growing up in the slums, I've never trusted no one. Well, that's just 'cause I've been scared of being stabbed in the back.
I mean, the more you trust someone, the more it hurts when they let you down. Yes, I think I can understand that. After all, I had a taste of it in that trial 2 months ago. I chose to trust someone and paid for it. That betrayal left a big scar. You know though, Gina, I worked something out quite recently too. Trusting in someone else is really an exercise in learning to trust yourself. And when your gut tells you it's the right thing to do, and your trust is rewarded, there is no better feeling in the world. I think I have you to thank for reminding me of that valuable lesson.
Oh, well, if you say so. That make a fat lot of sense to me, though.
I'm trying to say that putting my faith in you, Gina, has been a real pleasure.
But, for crying out loud, pack it in. But I suppose I sort of feel the same way. I mean, sometimes trusting someone else is, you know, alright.
Thanks. This is the way I see it, Renasuke. A defense lawyer is only as good as his faith in his client. And that comes down to how much faith he has in himself. After this experience, I'm starting to feel like I understand what you mean. Kazuma, am I living up to your expectations? Am I turning out to be the lawyer you believed I could be? No. Pardon the interruption. But what the deuce does a man have to do to be noticed around here, my dear fellow? That voice. It's too late for that voice now, Mr. Naruhodo. I've been standing here patiently at the corner of this room for an eternity. Ah, yes, it was me all along. I would have said when you finally noticed me. But you people, with your incessant babbling. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, it was me all along, you see. I'd assumed you'd taken back to the hospital, to be honest. Indeed I was, but I managed to escape again. Oh. I happen to be aware of one or two foibles of the doctor who was tending to me. I merely made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily issued me with a leave of absence. How very above board. But enough of my adventures. That was a fine victory, Mr. Naruhodo. Your tireless efforts justly rewarded, I fear. Congratulations are in order. As a close friend, I tip my hat at you. Oh, thank you.
Some great detective you are. Great at being cold as ice, maybe.
Have I hurt you in some way, Mr. Strahd?
While you've been having a snooze in your nice soft bed, some of us have been fighting for our lives.
Ah, well, that bullet did cause me to lose a substantial amount of blood, it's true. So I have indeed been feeling somewhat cold. Not perhaps as cold as ice, but, well, how I feel. Could you take your hands off my neck, please, Mr. Sholmes? And in some way, I suppose, congratulations are in order for you too, Mrs. Strahd.
What's that supposed to mean? Why so affide?
Well, naturally, it isn't my intention to alarm you, but an acquittal in your trial with that particular prosecutor is perhaps a little precarious. Well done, Mr. Sholmes. Not alarming in the slightest.
Oh, the Reaper, you mean? 'Cause anyone who's found not guilty in a trial he was working on winds up dead anyway. Is that it?
The very point I was trying to make. As exemplified by the fate of Mr. McGilded, in fact. Ah, but of course, I pay no attention to such irrational drivel myself.
Yeah, well, it don't bother me.
Oh, really?
Course not. The way I see it, the Reaper's a bit like Reaper's a bit like him upstairs.
Him upstairs? You mean like God?
Yeah, Him upstairs knows what's what, right? He knows what people are like on the inside. He won't have got the wrong end of the stick. There's some cows like that bot trotter what are rotten to the core. At the end of the day, him upstairs makes sure they get what they deserve.
I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Divine justice is one thing, though. The Reaper taking matters into his own hands and claiming lives, that's another.
Well, I ain't like the McGildeds of this world, so I ain't scared. I got principles, see?
A trait in you which is to be admired, Mr. Strahd.
Oi, just give it a rest, alright?
As I was saying, congratulations are in order. The news of your acquittal was very welcome news to me indeed. Let me express my heartfelt congratulations, Gina.
Well,
there you are, Early. How long have you been here? Honestly, I went to the main entrance especially to meet you there. Ah, Iris, my dear, I do apologize. But wait until I tell you what happened. This pair made utter fool of themselves. What happened? As you know, I have a penchant for disguise. I was hiding in this room dressed as a bailiff. But these doubts didn't notice my presence at all. I had no idea. Can you imagine, Iris? Would you credit it? I'm not sure, really. I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, Hurley, but you just don't have the weighty presence you seem to think you have. In fact, you really ought to be careful about that. It's gonna land you in trouble one day. I'll be careful. Ouch! Anyway, it's such a shame. I'm so hoping to throw a party for Ginny tonight, but you won't be able to come, will you? Don't look like I'm gonna be going nowhere for a while. You heard the judge's patter. I got stuff to make amends for, apparently. All them offences. What was it again? Breaking and entering, taking the box trotter stuff what was in log, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think you'll find that basically being a pickpocket is the main offense.
But diving ain't an offense. It's a job, innit?
I don't think so.
Still, it has got me thinking all this. Maybe I should start looking for another line of work. I mean, you didn't start off as a lawyer, did you, Otto?
Well, no, but I was never a pickpocket.
Well, anyway, I reckon I can make a change. I'm gonna do something for all them lot like me from the slums. Something that makes a difference for them. That's a wonderful idea, Jenny, and I'm sure you can do it. What is it? Nothing.
Miss Gina Lestrade.
Oh, Monsieur Lestrade, prison carriages arrived, ma'am. Come with me to the right gate at once.
Right. Well, looks like I'm off then. Yes. Goodbye, Gina. And good luck.
Otto?
Yes? What are you doing? What?
Bam! What was that for? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say, so...
Ah, indeed. Perhaps the situation calls for a phrase hitherto missing from your vocabulary, Mr. Strahd.
Aye?
On occasions such as this, I would recommend a simple thank you.
Oh.
Oh yes, it's good advice, Jenny.
Right, I see. Well... Thanks, Otto. Thank you for everything what you've done, for believing in me.
Not at all. In fact, that should be my line. Thank you, Gina. Well, there she goes. I wonder if I'll ever see her again. Well, well, quite the indomitable pick pass.
Oh, I nearly forgot. I bought a paper outside. It's a special edition, and this trial is all over the front page. Pickpocket's innocence proven. Isn't it wonderful?
You should have shown it to Gina, Iris. She would have been thrilled.
Oh no, how silly of me. Ah, but anyway, would you like the good news or the bad news?
Oh, not again.
Well, what do you say, Reno? Early?
As usual, I think I'd rather get the bad news out of the way first.
Absolutely not.
I have no intention of listening to anything but good news.
And there you have it. How people answer that question says a lot about them, doesn't it?
Let's not go there.
Alright then, maybe let's start with the good news this time. The rain has finally stopped. It was a record level of rainfall, apparently.
Well, that is good news indeed. We can journey back in great comfort. Alright then, what's the bad news?
The huge storm has left the seas very choppy. The channel in particular is awful, so sailings out of Dover have been delayed by a day or more.
Wait, Dover?
That's right. If we head to the station immediately, we may still make it in time to wave Susie off.
But there won't be a train, surely. We couldn't be that lucky. Who do you think I am, Mr. Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes? I rushed to Victoria Station earlier and made an arrangement for a special express. If we're here now, we should be there in time for dinner. And I know of a fine restaurant that serves the most delicious baked sole.
I don't...
The great detective does it again! Indeed he does. I happen to be aware of a number of the rail transport director's foibles. What? I really made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily laid on the locomotive. Elementary. Oh. Just an idea, but it might be wise to stop manipulating people that way.
What are we waiting for then? To London, Victoria.
That took somewhat longer than I had anticipated.
Susie's boat must be about to leave now.
Mr. Sato, where are you?
Over there, look! It looks like she's reading something.
Oi! Hold it! Mr. Sato, wait! What are you doing?
Mr. Naruhodo, what are you doing here?
We came as soon as we could after the trial. I mean, we heard that sailings were being delayed due to the bad weather, you see.
Oh, I see. Then tell me, how did Gina's trial go?
It went well. She was acquitted.
That is wonderful. Really wonderful news.
The book you were about to throw into the sea. It was your encyclopedia of British law, wasn't it?
Oh dear, I was hoping you hadn't seen that. I am not worthy of practicing law in any way now, so I was saying my final farewell.
You were saying goodbye to law?
You, Susato-san? Would I be correct in assuming it's because of the peephole, Miss Susato?
I deliberately altered the scene of a crime, and then I tried to hide the fact. What I did is utterly unforgivable.
That reminds me. How did you even come to have this, Susie?
On the evening of the incident, Mr. Sholmes had invited Gina to dinner, if you remember.
Oh yeah, we had a wonderful time.
Well, Gina gave us a little introductory lesson, didn't she? To the art of pickpocketing, I mean.
Oh, that was so much fun. I stole Runa's armband.
Yeah, please don't do that again, Iris. That band is very important to me.
Well, if it's so important, you should pay more attention to it. You didn't notice it for ages.
On a whim, I thought it would be fun to see if I could take the cat flap home at, so I put it up my sleeve.
Really?
And then I rather forgot about it, until I found myself in Mr. Windybank's shop with it later that night.
I see.
And then... Mr. Sholmes.
Leave me, Mr. Naruhodo. Right.
After Mr. Naruhodo had left the shop, I started to think. That door started to play on my mind.
The storeroom door, you mean?
Yes, if Gina was anywhere in the shop, I realized it could only be behind that door. And at that moment, the little device that I had up my sleeve sprang to mind. I was so worried about Gina, I simply had to know.
So you used the cat flap-o mat to make the peephole in the door, as captured in a photographic print of the shop by one of Early's red-handed recorders. Indeed, it was of the first importance at that point. Precisely when the peephole was made, that information would prove to be Mr. Naruhodo's greatest weapon. Though naturally, without proof, it would have amounted to nothing.
But when I looked through the hole in the door, the sight that met my eyes made my blood run cold.
Oh, did she see?
Thoughts started to run through my mind. I remembered that trial 2 months earlier,
The trial of Magnus McGilded.
I thought about how he had manipulated the evidence and arranged false testimony to secure his freedom. It made the British justice system feel very dark and sinister to me. And then a terrible thought occurred to me. What if some wicked criminal was planning to do the same thing now? Because from the appearance of the crime scene, it looked exactly as though Gina had shot Mr. Windybank. Even though I was sure she would never have done such a thing.
You were worried that the true culprit would try to frame her for the crime.
That's right, but then I realized it would be very difficult for anyone to give false testimony in this case.
What do you mean?
Well, the crime appeared to have happened behind the door of a locked room. For someone to claim falsely to have witnessed it, there would be a way to see beyond the door.
For which a peephole would be the very first thing. The very thing.
Only the peephole I had made wasn't actually there until after the crime had been committed, of course. And the criminal would know that, so it wouldn't make any difference.
But the possibility of a rather ingenious trap was there, was it not? A trap? Is that why she did it? So, is that why you kept it a secret, Susie? You never mentioned that you made the peephole to anyone, not even to the police.
I know, and I knew at the time that what I was doing was wrong, a criminal offense even. That is why I decided to confide in Mr. Sholmes. If Mr. Naruhodo was completely backed into a corner, with no other possible means of escape, the truth about the peephole could save him. That was my plan.
She really does think of everything. But then, why didn't you just tell me everything before the trial begun? My dear fellow, you're not thinking straight. If she had done that, It would have rendered you complicit in the whole escapade. You could have been disbarred if you had been seen to have knowingly tampered with the crime scene. So Mrs. Otto decided to shoulder the burden of responsibility alone. For your sake and Mr. Strahd's.
Mrs. Otto. The truth is, when it happened, I did it because I had lost a little of my faith in the law.
Oh.
I was worried that the right person wouldn't be convicted of the crime, but the moment I allowed myself to think that is the moment I lost my right to call myself a judicial assistant.
What you did isn't comparable to what he did. Graydon is the one who lied in the witness stand, using that peephole as a way to implicate Gina. And besides, if the peephole inconsistency hadn't existed, I'm not at all sure she would have been acquitted in the end. Mrs. Otto, what you did saved Gina's life.
Well, with your kind words, Mr. Naruhodo, you've saved me too from my regrets.
Well, we must all be thankful that Mrs. Strahd's freedom has been assured. Yeah, exactly. Although some of the loose ends in that trial will continue to play on my mind, I'm sure.
But the revelation that the music box disc contained secret messages, Mr. Naruhodo. What a triumph to work that out. I am full of admiration.
Well, actually, that argument wasn't quite as compelling as I thought it was.
Oh, it wasn't?
There was a communications officer among the jury members, you see, a telegraph operator, and she said that the majority of the sounds on the disc were just meaningless tones. As one would expect, after all, we're all talking about secret government communications. No doubt they were written in cipher to avoid being readily understood should they have been intercepted. In cipher? I see. So then we could never have hoped to understand the message anyway. Nonsense, my dear fellow. It's quite a zero-pipe problem, I assure you. Hey. So, what? Well, that can't be a real word, can it? How funny.
Wait, Iris, what did you just say?
Oh, I just said asogi. Does that word mean something to you?
Means something.
Asogi was the name of my best friend. What?
But how? How do you know that name, Iris?
I wrote it down during the trial before, when the message was playing on the music box. She transcribed it on the fly. She really is a genius. I thought the message probably wouldn't be written out in plain Morse code, so I tried various ways to interpret it. But whatever I tried, the words just didn't seem to make any sense. That is, in English at least.
Oh.
It suddenly occurred to me, you see, there's more than one Morse code, not just the English variety. Various countries around the world have altered and added to Morse code to use it in their own languages. I don't believe it. Are you saying? That's right. I've only actually seen a trot of Japanese Morse code once before, but I think it's based on the Iroha pentagram, innit? And you mean to say that in Japanese Morse code the message says asogi? Yeah, I think so. Sorry, but I don't remember all of the Japanese Morse code.
Iris, would you let me see that?
Mrs. Otto, do you know it? Do you know Japanese Morse code?
Yes, I spent some time studying it. Because I'm quite sure Morse code will become ever more important for international communications.
Then might I recommend, my dear madam, that you focus your efforts on the English version?
Be that as may. Iris, show me the message, please.
Of course.
But what can this possibly mean? Whatever is in that long sequence of supposedly meaningless dots and dashes, it's made the color drain from Sada-san's face. Did his neck not get snapped? What happened? There is no doubt that this message is written in Japanese Morse code. So the British Empire has been using Japanese for its secret communications? I don't understand the reason why, but the message appears to be a list of 4 people's names. 4 names. The first is Kei Asoge.
Kazuma Asoge. Why? Why was his name on that disc?
The second is A Shin.
Alright, sorry about that. So, the first name was Kei Asoge, and the second is A Shin. I don't recognize that name.
The third is T Gregson.
Gregson? Ah, it would seem Tobias Gregson is the third man on the list. And what's his name doing in a secret government communication as well?
And the last name...
What's the matter, Mr. Sato?
It is just so strange. So unexpected.
Oh, what is it, Susie? Don't keep us in suspense.
The last name is J. Wilson.
What? Wilson? John H. Wilson? You mean Daddy?
It says only J. Wilson, so I'm afraid I can't be sure. Then, after the 4 names, it reads, if I translate from Japanese, that is all 4. And that is the end of the message. Or rather, the end of what you noted down, Iris.
I just can't believe it. Who would ever have thought that those discs contained Japanese Morse code? Not to mention a strange list of some disturbingly familiar names. It would appear that this particular message is a communication of some kind between Great Britain and the Empire of Japan. So Daddy could be in Japan then? Where Susie and Runo come from?
Oh, well...
No, it's not very likely really, is it? I mean, there are thousands of people with the surname Wilson, and there must be lots of J's among them.
Professor John H. Wilson, visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University.
But we can't tell Iris about that now. We just can't. This is so strange. Somehow, in solving the case of Mr. Windybank's murder today, I feel like I've rolled back a boulder at the mouth of a very dark cave.
I do wonder if perhaps it is a dark cave that we shouldn't go wandering inside.
But there could be treasure inside. Some legendary items, a sword, some armor, maybe a cool boss fight, maybe.
Oh dear, the ship is going to set sail soon.
Yeah, it seems so.
I'll sail on that steamship first to the port of Dunkirk in France. Then I'll change onto a larger passenger vessel bound for Japan.
You really going then, Susie? We wish you a safe passage, Mr. Sato.
Thank you so much. I wish you all the very best.
Mr. Sato, I had hoped to have you always at my side, to guide me and support me.
Mr. Naruhodo,
please, come back soon. As far as I'm concerned, you really are the very best judicial assistant in the world.
I'm quite sure I'll be back before you know it.
Really, Susie?
Oh, now don't forget, Iris, I made you a promise I've yet to fulfill.
A promise?
About your manuscript.
Ah.
Oh yeah, the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Well, I'll be waiting for you then, Susie. A promise is a promise.
Definitely, Iris. Miss Naruhodo,
Yes?
do you remember the first time we met?
Yeah, of course.
On the SS Buria, when I was dragged out from that wardrobe, still half asleep. If I remember rightly, you threw me halfway across the cabin with a Susato takedown. You know very well what I'm talking about after that. It's strange, but being thrown together as we were in that case, I somehow felt straight away that you were the perfect person to continue Kazuma-sama's great legacy.
Mr. Sato.
And my instincts were right. I really want to believe... No, I am sure that... I'll be back soon. Farewell until then.
Somehow we seem to have come to the end of the adventures of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Or the first volume, at least. Looking back now, it feels as though fate has led me on this journey. Fate led me to becoming a lawyer, to traveling halfway around the world, to meeting the great detective. I'm sure there'll be trials and tribulations ahead. Of course there will. But whatever happens, I know I'll be able to turn my fortunes around. After all, I have the greatest friends in the world on my side.
Ah, yes. Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, Mr. Sholmes?
I have some rather
Awkward news.
The railway company has decided to sue over the special express train, apparently.
Huh?
It caused such a commotion on the line, all the other trains had to wait at the stations. But really, we would never have made it to Dover in time otherwise. Anyway, I explained everything, and how it was all your fault.
Huh?
I believe a formal complaint should be delivered to your office tomorrow. But not to worry, my dear fellow. According to Mr. Sato, you love defending yourself in court.
Huh?
It's alright, I'm perfectly happy to testify.
He really didn't look like the sort of man who'd do something so outrageous.
See?
Mr. Sholmes?
Yes? A word, if you don't mind. Why, certainly. Any word you like. Belly it out, my dear fellow. Oh, yes, I love Reno's words, and I know just the one he'll use here. Then I really must say...
Objection!
Shu Takumi, Director Scenario.
In the following weeks, hundreds of music boxes arrived at Baker Street from all over Europe. Something was afoot. Though it transpired I had ordered them all myself. So I advertised them for sale with "Used by Mr. Sholmes to solve an important case." And the money I've earned. Consulting detective work pays a pittance by comparison.
Kazuya Nuri, art direction.
I haven't slept a wink. This manuscript is due tomorrow now. When I'm this busy, Erda usually cooks me breakfast. Well, cooks is an overstatement for some dry toast and insipid coffee. I do miss Susie and her lovely Japanese breakfasts.
Yasumasa Kitagawa. Music.
Witness, your testimony is riddled with contradictions. Exactly. Rarely do rare Koban coins hide under rare stakes themselves.
Well, I do not son who's his father is an innocent man, or you call my son a liar. Witnesses, my courtroom is no place for your petty arguments. Shinsuke Kodama, Takachi Ito. Arigato.
Having delivered the Russian dancer to shore in Shanghai, I laid low on the steamship for a while. But last night I apprehended an extremely suspicious Japanese national on board.
I've done nothing wrong. All I did was give our guy's offspring to...
Hold on. I missed that.
Damn it. A man brings some kittens on board and suddenly is a hardened criminal. It's not fair.
Yuichiro Akita, Atsushi Jodai, Kazuhiro Nakaza, Ryusuke Yamada. Thank you. Scientific investigation will be the gold standard for policing in the new age. I dream of a world governed by the tenets of order and discipline, like a great clock, in fact, whose hundreds of parts mesh together in perfect unison. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have but 2 minutes and 37 seconds until my next appointment. Tomiyuko Asami, Yasuo Kondo, Tadashi Niyama, Takahiro Ronaka. Thank you very much.
Race magazines, yeah. I know me need again. Whenever I say that one line, you're out now, I'll get standing ovation. Wanna hear it? Not bad, I suppose, for an amateur.
Oh, that shit puts me to shame. Shinji Kaminagochi, Akiko Shibata.
Been visiting the old girl on a daily basis, of course. Joni, my old jailbird. Must say, battling with those bally stairs every day has done wonders for the dickieback. Managing rather well with the housework, too. Got his maid business taped up, I'd say. Hope the gossiping neighbors don't realize the man of a house is his own maid.
Gishin Sakurai, Makoto Tanaka, Tomoko Takahashi, and whoever else.
My Rolly is back on the beat again. Oh, thanks to the Reaper.
That's what I enjoyed this days, then hunting out the small tainted color. I'm a better puppy now, looking out for the top pennies, and my lovely wife. Oh, pet.
Oh, Rolly.
Mikako Kobayashi, no you. Marie Yagamochi, Yuichi something.
Looks like I'm gonna be doing time for a bit now. But Iris comes every day for a natter, so it ain't too boring. She's always going on about all them cases what Sholmes is looking into. Criminal investigations are quite interesting when you get into them.
Jionuchi Shiba, Yuki Urabe, Masayuki Tomoyoshi. Thank you.
Yes, I renounced my upbringing and chose a life of sophisticated crime.
But regrets? Please. Give over, bruv. That ain't the Ash we used to know.
We got time here, trying to come back in Milverton and Scoggins Milk Run, right?
The three Muscos Twisteds milking the neighborhood for all it's worth. Good. I'm glad he found some company.
Yoshiki Santo, Hiromitsu Maiba, Yoshinori Koyaki, Hirokazu Matsu something.
This past 6 months has been a time I shall remember forevermore. Painful goodbyes and wonderful encounters. I've come to realize that that's what life is all about. Naruhodo-san, I promise, your assistant will return to you one day. But for now, I leave you with many memories, and a heartfelt wish that life will treat you well.
Shintaro Kojima.
Take that.